didn't mean, and how members of my party could take advantage of our new status to renew our purpose, to refocus our message, and to rededicate ourselves to the ideas and principles that brought us to public service in the first place. In the 8 months since then, I've learned that life in the minority provides a little more time to think than life in the majority did. Not necessarily a good thing, but not necessarily a bad thing to have occasional moments to think and time to think. And in the minority, it's a necessity that the strength of our ideas, not the rules of the House, provide our only chance to win the argument. And my view is that many days in the last 8 months we've clearly won the argument. On a few of those days we've even won the vote. But winning the argument based on the strength of our ideas has become increasingly important and increasingly good for us to remind ourselves of who we are and why we're where we are. Too often in the majority, the need to govern became more important than the results of our work. But what we're for and why it's right for the country are questions that the minority party in the Congress must ask itself if it wants to regain the trust of the American people and eventually the responsibility of being the majority again and advancing our agenda rather than stopping their agenda. There's also the questions that confront a political movement, and the questions a political movement must ask itself if it hopes to remain an active participant in the battle of ideas that our country's all about. I don't know that it's possible to seriously discuss the domestic things I want to talk about today without first addressing the matter of security. The federal government has no greater responsibility than protect the life, liberty, and property of its citizens. I believe I said when I was here in November that in southwest Missouri, where I live, you can get an argument on almost any single thing that the federal government suggests it should be doing except for defending the country. The federal government's job, without any question, is to defend the country. And so before we talk about health savings accounts or marginal tax rates or coal to liquid or the other domestic things I want to talk about today, let's talk for a minute about the issue of terror and security in the age that we live in. To do this requires a national security strategy that's thoughtful and aggressive. More than that, it requires a posture that treats the business of fighting terrorists not as a series of trials and prosecutions, but as an overarching global strategy to counter extremism abroad and disrupt the planning and execution of terrorist activities here at home. And despite of what some people will tell you, the front lines of the struggle can be found in Iraq. Al-Qaeda says it's in Iraq. I believe it's in Iraq, where right now our men and women in uniform are battling, are capturing, or killing members of Al-Qaeda and other agents of radical Islam. It's perhaps one of the greatest paradoxes in American politics that those who support an ever-expanding role for federal government, who believe that the federal government should be an arbitrator of outcome, a distributor of wealth, an engineer of social good, reject the idea that the same government be given the resources and support it needs to keep us safe from attack. The enemies we're confronted with today are different from those of any previous century. They owe no allegiance to government. They hold little regard for life, liberty, or the tranquil pursuit of happiness. They're concerned with only one thing: the complete destruction of those who don't share their narrow view of the world. We must confront their tactics of terror with the same level of passion and single-minded determination that drives them to act. But we must also realize that even if it had unlimited resources, the federal government can't be the only government that's concerned about this issue of terror. To fill the gaps that occur, we need a strong and coordinated effort from state and local officials in foiling the terrorist bombings that we saw almost occur last month at Piccadilly Square. It wasn't agents of the central British government that stepped forward at the moment that the crisis was averted. It was a squad of local rescue workers who followed their instincts, and then work with the national agencies to block potentially catastrophic attacks. Recognizing the realities of the threats we face, we need to allocate our scarce national resources where they need to be to confront this threat rather than somewhere based on either politics or personal favor. The resources that we have can't provide all the things that need to be done at the federal level because there continue to be responsibilities that can only be done at the state level, rather, because there can continue to be responsibilities that can only be handled at the federal level. Securing the border is part of defending the country. Back to that preeminent responsibility of our federal government, defining and securing the borders is part of defending the country, and only the federal government can do that and make sure that those who come through that border or over that border are regulated, identified, verified, and deemed legal to be here.